What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Function House, live from Red Hook. We are kicking off season number 5 of the show. Can you believe we've been doing this?
Just
This
like
is going
that.
on the 5th year.
Yes, wow.
Time is flying,
It
but
went by really fast.
it went by super fast. So we are really excited to kick off season 5 because we were very lucky enough to get for our first guest of season 5,
The Godfather.
the Godfather, a legend in his own right.
In my own mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only DJ Frankie Bones
Yeah.
is here
Right here.
at the Function House.
Hell yeah.
Took you 5 years to get here, man.
Better,
Brooklyn
better
born
late
and
than
all.
never. Better late than never, you know? I mean, I'm
What's-
ready too.
So what's up, man? How you been?
Well, it's been, I've been a professional DJ now 35 years.
Wow.
New Year's 1984 to 85, I played at a place called Wheeler's in Sheepshead Bay, which is still actually a bar in Sheepshead Bay. I can't believe it. 35 years is a long time.
That was your first New Year's Eve party?
Yeah, $200 I played for New Year's, and that was my first $200, and I knew after that night that things were never going to be the same for me because I was going to just keep this thing going as long as I could.
Did you have any idea that when you started you'd be in
Wow.
arenas?
I mean, listen, back in the 80s, being a DJ really was like being like Wolfman Jack or like, you know, Howard Stern. You were a talk guy on the radio playing music on FM radio. That was DJing to me. Paco, remember KTU back in the day? Paco,
yeah.
Carlos de Jesus, that stuff, you know. But yeah, I didn't know that it was going to turn into this, and it's still getting bigger. It's worldwide, as you know, but like other countries are now picking up on it. India, they're doing huge, you know, festivals. It's crazy.
That's great.
So,
go ahead,
yeah,
man.
go ahead.
No, I want to start. You're born and raised Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, Brooklyn, New York.
How did you get into DJing? Were you a freestyle DJ because you come from Brooklyn?
Well, what happened was from a very early age, my dad was into collecting records, and he always was around records, and we're not from a musical family, so it was records I got interested in at an early age. And then, you know, going through school, like grade school, disco was really big. The roller disco thing is what really made it happen for me because we were like going to Roller Palace in like 78, 79. I was 13 years old, but the Roller Palace was a roller disco. So you got the whole DJ end of it, the whole spectrum, where I would have had to be 18 and 19 to know what I knew at 13 or 14. I think that gave me a serious edge in what I did.
So that was the roller disco that was in Sheepshead Bay on the Bell
Yeah,
Parkway?
Roller Palace. I was like a regular there every Saturday afternoon from like May of 78 until the music got bad in the early 80s when they started playing like Toto and like, you know, the really bad 80s pop music. Then I stopped skating. But about 4 years, 4 or 5 years I went there religiously as a kid. And I learned everything about DJing from being in that skating rink.
So growing up in Brooklyn, having the musical bug, you were also a graffiti artist.
Yeah, the graffiti thing was amazing because, you know, the culture that we know as graffiti was from like 1969 to like 1989 on subway cars. What I loved about graffiti was when you had a whole train car painted, it was like you really couldn't back up from the train. You only had the wall behind you, so you'd have to sketch your art, and these guys were doing so fabulous like work in the 80s. So anything that was on a train, they weren't backing up to see their art. It was in a dark tunnel, and some of the graffiti is just so legendary because of how they created it. And I'm glad that I was part. I was like the second half of graffiti in the 80s, and I was just a tagger. But man, it was great living in the city in the 80s because we were doing things nobody else was doing. You know.
What was your tag?
Bones.
Bones.
Yeah, that was it. I was really skinny as a kid. Like my lunch money, I'd save and buy records, so I was really thin. But yeah, I chose Bones. It was good for the identity, and as a subculture, graffiti taught me how to work in the music industry somehow. I mean, it just like growing up, and you know, you stop when you're 16 or 17. I started making records pretty early, and just like I said, New York City back in the 70s, 80s is not like New York back then.
How did you get into making the records? Like, what was what introduced you
This
into
is a crazy
into making
story.
records?
Okay, so I graduated high school when I was 18, and my father had gotten murdered in 1985, and I never knew what death was before my father passed away and was murdered. I never had anybody. I never went to a funeral or wake. So when that happened, it was like just like devastating. I just graduated school, and my birthday's October '84. I was 18. The drinking age was still 18. On December 1st, they raised the drinking age to 21, so I was legal for 6 weeks. And then I had to go back to the drawing board for another 2 3/4 years. So I was friends with Omar Santana, and he was doing a lot of edits for major labels and stuff. So I said to Omar, why don't we make the record from scratch? He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, yo, we just make the record. He goes, well, we don't know how to play keyboards. You hire somebody. I mean, you're doing edits for all these. He was doing edits for all these labels. We were meeting all types of people. I was like, just network. And
So he had the studio?
Yeah, he had a studio, but he would work in all the big studios in New York. So, like, you know, he was working at really big studios. Like, record label would pay him to do the edits there. So, you know, on an Atari machine rather than like a Tascam, and he was getting $1,000 an edit. You know, it'd take him a couple of days to do it.
But that was great money back then.
But he was lining up projects, and then like on the Carlos Berrios and him, he brought Carlos Berrios on, and they were doing stuff together. And then it was like there was so much work, and I would happen to meet Tommy Musto and Silvio Tancredi from Fourth Floor. And we had a couple freestyle demos they liked. So they're like, if you follow through with it, and you know, we'll press a record. And man, the minute you see your name on a record, it's just like, it's like graffiti. It's like you want to see your name on records. And we were like a machine from like 1987 to 89 and 90. Just records like a treadmill. Me, Lenny D, Tommy Musto, and then everyone on the labels like New Groove and Fourth Floor. Met some great people like Bobby Condas doing the poem for New Groove. And me being like, me and Lenny coming out of a session, Bobby coming in, and making a record like The Poem, which is like one of the most legendary house records New York ever created. It was just amazing to even know these people, you know?
So you were making like freestyle records, freestyle edits?
Yeah, so what happened was like,
yeah,
it was breaks and freestyle. I was first doing freestyle. Lenny was doing house at the time, and we were like neighborhood rivals, so me and Lenny didn't get along at first, but then when he realized he wasn't doing freestyle yet, so he was like a house guy. I was more like a freestyle guy, but then we kind of mashed it all together with the breaks and then doing the DJ cut-up records like Bones Breaks and Drum Drops. And we just became like really close really quick. Me, Tommy Musto, Lenny D, Ralphie D. I mean, Ralphie's like the godfather of, you know, club DJs in Brooklyn. So, yeah, we had a nice little network. We had a pressing plant. We did everything homegrown, you know, like bring the records to the record stores. I met all the people at the stores. It was amazing because of the network we created. And this is before techno came along.
Yeah,
or
so
rave,
then,
yeah.
so then how did it come to techno?
Well, what was weird was I pressed Bones Breaks 1. They didn't even want to press the record because it was just like cut-ups, you know what I mean? I was like, look, I put 6 of them on a record. You get them for the price of a 12-inch, and they actually became legendary. But the first one sold 3,000, which was great. 3,000, good number. The second one sold 10,000. Was like, where did the other 7,000 go? They all were going to London. We couldn't figure out what the hell was going on.
And
like,
you were bootlegging these? Or
no,
they were
they're
on a
not
label?
bootlegs. They're actually Underworld Records was our label. It wasn't bootlegs. They were cut-up samples, but you know, now you might get in trouble for a little sample of this or that. But they were really like just well-crafted sample records, and they were going to London like 7,000 copies, and we were like, what the hell is going on? Where did London just come? And they were doing this thing called Rave. We had no idea. I had no idea what a Rave was when Tim Taylor from JSE Agency said, hey, would you like to come over and play some records in the UK? And I'm like, you know, hell yeah. So when we went over, we were only supposed to play to 5,000 people, and there was 25,000 people in a field on ecstasy tripping, and we go on, me and Musto, about 4 or 5 in the morning, played at like 7. It was unbelievable, like, coming back, I had 25,000 people. They were all up in my head. I'm like, how the hell am I going to get this to happen in New York? We were living in very violent times in New York. But somehow, you know, a year or 2 later, we actually did Storm Rave and started getting thousands of people to come to abandoned warehouses to party.
So how did you get that off the ground in New York?
It was difficult because in New York, I don't know if you guys remember, but a little history. In March, I believe it's March 25th, 1990, we had the fire in the Bronx, the social club that burned down, Happy Land, right? And 87 people I think. Yep. And they started the social club task force, which means raves were not going to happen in New York. And I truly believe they weren't going to happen. But then I went to California. 9 months after I went to London, I went to LA for the first time. And they showed me how to break into warehouses. Not that I didn't know how to break into warehouses, but
well, you were from Brooklyn.
But here's the clincher part. Like, they told me if you cut the lock off their gate and take their lock off and put your own lock on and leave for a week, if your lock is still on the gate a week later, you know you're good to go. And I was like, yes, that's the key right there. So we found this place in Brooklyn. It was a masonry yard we called it the Brickyard Sessions. And you literally set up, you know, a DJ thing in a brickyard, and it was great.
Where in Brooklyn was this?
Like Glenwood Road and Albany Avenue, where my old neighborhood, the freight train tracks that run from like Bay Ridge, that runs like dead across Brooklyn.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
about. The dead tracks, they call them. Yep. But yeah, I mean, I lived on East 38th Street when I was a kid, and we were the last house on the block, so A lot of kids would do sleigh riding in the wintertime. We had hills there. So when you're a kid, 8 or 9, and you have railroad tracks next to your house, especially dead ones, I mean some freights ran off, you go exploring, but that's how you learn how to set cars on fire and burn things. And
So take us through a night of throwing one of these illegal raves.
all right, so, I mean, the
Like,
planning.
who brings the equipment? Who's setting up the
Well,
equipment?
you know what? It
Who's
was all
charging at the door?
It was like if you guys were my buddies, you would bring a speaker. You would bring a speaker. Well, what we did was we were smart. We went to Coney Island Train Yard for the subway and got the work carts that they put tools on, and we robbed one of those to put them on the freight tracks. So what we would do is get the equipment up on the tracks, put the equipment on this tool cart that rolls on the tracks, and then roll it down the tracks a half mile. And then make everybody come in from like Kings Highway and walk down the tracks. We'd have flashlights or lights up ahead and tell people on, you know, the map point, you got to walk on the freight tracks 10 blocks. We wanted to go to places where police would not show up because you don't really want to be somewhere where police, they would hear the music, but in the masonry yard, they weren't getting in the masonry yard. And if they did, I'd be like, my uncle said we could do this, you know, like if I owned the place or something. But the Brickyard was the first sessions we did. They weren't really storm raves yet. We were testing the grounds. 200 people would come out. You know, I mean, it was really good ecstasy.
But that's how the movement.
That's
how the movement starts.
Yeah,
right?
totally. And I mean, there's video on YouTube. I got a couple of videos, the Lost Storm Rave tapes. If you just look that up on YouTube, you'll see like one of the early ones in action, and you could see how rudimental it's like, very, very like, you know, DIY. We didn't know what we were doing, but we kind of knew what we were doing. So. I just like, if you remember the clubs in the 80s in New York, we never had multiple DJs on a lineup in New York City, ever. It never happened. I talked to many venue owners. They're like, why would I hire 2 DJs when all I need is one for the night?
And they would play open to close.
Yeah, open to close. That's what we did when I did the Wave in Staten Island, when I did Metro 700. And if you wanted to bring in an extra guy, it'd be like, if they let you, then you'd have to give half your money to that guy. So me and Lenny used to split on night, and I didn't mind that because you know what? It was like, I saw in my mind, I was like, they get track acts. You could have 15 track acts on a, what's a track act? Show me, cover girls come and sing the song, Stevie B come in, Rob Bass will sing It Takes Two, when they put multiple people. But multiple DJs never happened until we started doing raves in New York. I mean, it was a crazy time. Like, people say, oh, no, they had multiple DJs. No. You had Jelly Bean at the Funhouse, Larry Levan at the Garage, Tony Humphries at Zanzibar, one DJ, not 2, 3, 4. So we kind of introduced the DJ lineup to New York.
So you've been involved with thousands of raves. What's the one rave that sticks with you?
Well, I think the last Storm Rave in December of '92 was the one that stood with me the most. And the reason is, in 1992, it never snowed once before New Year's in my entire life. Like, I might have been 24 at the time, but it never snowed. On the night we did that last Storm Rave, I was up in Toronto, and we had a nor'easter on December 11th of '92. You could look this up on YouTube, too. It was a nor'easter that left 2 feet of snow from Washington, D.C. all the way into Canada. And I got stuck up there. I get to the airport. The lady's like, we could put you on a plane on Wednesday. I'm like, I got to be in New York tonight to do a show. She's like, you better check to see if that show's going to happen because it's, 2 feet of snow. And we're not flying planes. So I said, you know what? I went to Amtrak, and I caught a train. And I got to Albany. It took me 16 hours to get back to New York. Albany was where the train was supposed to end. And I get off the train. I'm like, now what am I going to do? Ain't nobody coming to Albany to pick me up. And just by the grace of God, there was a train across the platform with one door open. And I jumped on it as a stowaway. And I got caught, but the guy was really cool. The conductor was really cool because I heard him say they were taking it into Grand Central Station. I get to New York at 11:30 at night. Now, mind you, 8 o'clock in the morning is when it's all started. So now it's like 11 o'clock at night. So I'm traveling like, 14, 15 hours. Get to South Ferry on the one train, take the ferry over to Staten Island where the party was. I made it on stage 5 minutes before I was originally supposed to play at 1 a.m. And there was 2,500 people in a horse stable in Staten Island. And it was a horse stable. It was kind of like just muddy and like, but yeah, it was still 2,500 people. It should have had 5,000 people, but the way it snowed out, and people came from the Midwest and were driving through this. I don't know how everybody made it, but that was like God's way of saying, you got to end these storm raves. And that's what we did that last night. We didn't do any more. And then all the crews that were, with us kind of started their own production companies. And, you had NASA come out of that. Limelight definitely came out. My, Future Shock, me and Lenny gave Lord Michael our night at the Wave so we could go to London in 88 or 89. So that's how he got his start. And then Caffeine in Long Island, again, it all came through our channels and stuff. But that's why I opened the record store in 1990, Groove Records, Sonic Groove Records, so we could have a base of operation to teach people about, you know, what was about to happen, even though we had no idea ourselves.
So you stopped doing your own personal raves in what year?
It was 92. We
92.
did Storm Rave for 2 years, 91 and 92. I did one, well, Red Bull sponsored us in 2015, which was another amazing party. We were like in a time warp back to 92, no cell phones. It was great, you know, but I would love to do more of them, but like it's so hard. It's very competitive in New York right now, and most people that do the big parties, they're all Europeans that come here, and you know, the scene in Brooklyn right now is amazing. I mean, especially for techno.
Yeah.
You know, like I haven't gone. That's a great space. I mean, I went there and I was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, it's a good space, and we need that in New York.
Well, it's New York people throwing the party, but they're just hiring people from overseas.
Yeah, I mean, like when Time Warp came in, like Time Warp's a legendary, you know, rave organization, and the Time Warp parties are really good when they do them here. But, you know, it's the talent that they bring, too. You know, they bring anybody that brings heavy-duty talent's going to get, you know, a good crowd and stuff, so.
Yeah, but you guys throwing these parties back in 92 with no social media. How are you getting people from the Midwest coming to these parties?
Okay, well, this is really funny because when I had this store, my brother was dating Heather Hart, and she wanted to start a fanzine. So I was like, cool. And when you do this fanzine, why don't you cut advertisements out of like Dance Music Report or Billboard and just make like beginning advertising, and people will tend to believe that you're actually doing advertising. And we would send these magazines to all the record stores because we were selling our records to other record stores across the country. So it was very DIY. It was like put the fanzines in a box with a bunch of records, ship them out to different cities, and then we were traveling to all these cities to DJ, so we got the word out quick. We were like definitely the ground roots of bringing all the cities together in America, which it's a big country, man. This is why we never really had a unified scene, because we don't have like BBC One radio like across in UK where everybody hears it at once. It was very localized, and it was through the records and the networking of the distribution of vinyl that made us, you know, well known, because we knew all the producers. I mean, Richie Horton was like Richie Rich when we met him. He was just starting his label, +8. The same thing with Jeff Mills. All the labels that were coming up, we knew all these guys early on. We were selling their records, and that's how we networked it. And it was amazing, because with no internet, yeah, I look back and go, wow, that's just like impossible to even do it now. How will you do it without the internet, you know?
Yeah.
So when you stopped doing your raves here, you were primarily focusing on playing in Europe?
Well, no, I was really American. I wanted to stay national because I already did the European thing. I was more comfortable trying to, you know, go to city here. So this worked through Canada, Mexico, you know, North America, really.
Right.
And I went strong. I mean, really strong till like 2005. But then when EDM started coming in, it was like the new guard came in, and it was like, you know, all those guys before the internet were before the internet, and it started to fade. And I didn't really stay with the production the way I should have. But I don't regret it. I mean, because I lived something in the 90s that cannot be taken away. I mean, the whole PLUR thing in general, peace, love, unity, respect, that was something we started, and it had so many years of people just being like, no, you didn't start that. But in 1990, my brother and I, well, my brother mostly painted this train car that said Peace, Love, Unity, and it was a movement. We had a record out, the Peace, Love, Unity movement. And we were pushing this thing as a peace and love thing. Because you come into abandoned warehouses in Brooklyn, you know, we were doing them in like Sunset Park on the waterfront, on Kent Avenue. You don't want anybody hurting themselves in a legal warehouse party, so we'd always push it like, yo, you come in peace, you dance to the music, and yeah, and nobody ever fought at any Storm Raves. It was after that where the trouble started. We had a good 2-year run with Storm Rave. If we would have kept going 93, 94, it got a little dark in that period, but I mean, for the most part, we never had any trouble, you know, at any of our parties.
You're known as the godfather of American rave.
Yeah,
It's
I
pretty
like
big
that.
title.
I like that because I give credit where it's due. I know Frankie Knuckles is the godfather of house. I know Juan Atkins, the godfather of techno. When they use this Godfather thing with me, and especially the peace, love, unity thing, to push culture as a, you know, as a movement, and to also want to be the guy to bring DJ lineups in, because we never had DJ lineups. If you look at the Stormwave Flyers, we kind of blueprinted what was going to happen. I learned a lot from LA. I'm not going to say, because like when I went to LA, they were on the rave scene way before we were. They were like 3 months after I went to London, late '89, they started doing raves in LA because they had the warehouse district downtown. They were doing parties, but they weren't really raves. They were kind sound more like Hollywood, like a Quentin Tarantino type affair where, you know, some kids would bring their father's 45s of, you know, jazz and John Coltrane and play hip hop. It wasn't really quite rave, and then they got it. But like I said, when the promoter showed me how to cut the locks off the gate and put my own, I came back to New York and was in like that, dude. You know. So.
I remember seeing the flyers to those raves, and they were like really great artwork.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
thank
it
you.
was a ton of DJs listed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
mean, to
was-
this day, it was, you know, like I brought in a lot of people for the first time. The biggest Storm rave was in June of '92. I had Sven Voth. I had Doc Martin. I mean, I had Casper Pound from the UK. And then, you know, it was me, my brother Jimmy Crash, Lenny D, and local guys, and then a couple track acts. And like Sandra Collins was an upcoming female DJ, probably the first one to do Jackie Christie and like Sandra Collins at a party, you know. So like a lot of stuff we did before everybody else, because in New York, like I said, the clubs was still on that Studio 54, kind of stuck in that like that era of, you know, velvet ropes and being elitist. We were kids from Brooklyn. We were outcasts, so we wanted to do our parties like outcasts. We wanted to be able to dress the way we wanted to dress and express ourselves and go past 4 in the morning, really. I mean, we'd go like 9 in the morning usually, so.
So you were flying these acts here? How was it working?
Yeah, a lot of times I was flying. Like if it was a DJ. See, I always like to say like the track acting I was never. And in the UK they called it PA, live PA. I guess public appearance would be PA. I'm pretty sure, but a track act. You know, I mean, I remember doing Rob Bass and Easy Rock came in the club, and you got to get them out the limo, get them on the stage. They lip sync to their song and they leave. So some clubs would do a few track acts a night, but like I said, the only way you were getting 2 DJs in a club is Jam Master Jay was coming with Run DMC and they were performing, then Jam Master Jay would do his thing. But like otherwise, club owners didn't want any part of anything more than one DJ. And like to be able to make a DJ lineup that goes from midnight to 9 in the morning, like the one Storm Rave, and I mean to have Sven Voth, Richie Horton was on that lineup, first time playing in New York, and Sven Voth, Kioki played. I mean, it was like we had a really good lineup, and it was in a. They were building a storage unit place where you store your shit at a storage spot, right? But all they had was the frame of the building. There was nothing inside it. It was an empty box. So we told the owner, could we throw a party in there? He's like, sure, you want to give me some money? And we did, and man, we filled that room up, like 3,000 people. It was like so amazing.
So I'm assuming there was no insurance or anything like
Well,
that.
we had an insurance policy that somebody wrote up. I'm not saying it was the most legit one if you got caught, but I mean, we did have paperwork that if the cops came, you know, that we were filming an event. It was during the New Music Seminar, which back then was a lot like the Winter Music Conference. So all music people from Europe would be here, and we hired a van to drive people from Manhattan to Brooklyn, and we had some big, like the owners of R&S Records was there. I mean, I could go down a list for days, so I don't want to be name dropping, but the New Music Seminar, the people from Germany, like Mayday were here, a lot of artists were here, and then to have Richie Horton playing, everybody knew Richie at the time, like he was probably one of the first superstar guys, really. I wanted Carl Cox, but he wasn't here for that, but I did get Richie, and that was definitely, you know, to have... People were just getting into the sound. The trance thing was just coming along, but we had this like kind of hardcore techno rave thing happening, and that was like Brooklyn's own. You know, like Joe Causey, Brooklyn's own. We were doing our thing our way, and then nobody else in the city was doing it like that.
So speaking of Carl Cox, you're signed to his label.
Yeah, I'm signed to Intech Digital. Actually, just had a release last week with my boy Futek, and it's called Acid Souls. It's on Intech Digital. Yeah, Carl signed my Call of Techno. We did new versions in 2017. It was the biggest record they had on the label that year. So, you know, it got me a few shows. I did Ultra in Miami. You know, Carl got me a couple things. And the big one he did on the waterfront 2 years ago. It was an amazing party. It was like on 55th Street and First Avenue.
It was the tech support party.
Great. Yeah, tech support throws really, really good parties. I mean, they knew just how to do it right. And yeah, I was glad that I was part of that. Awesome. It was really, you know, I know Carl 30 years, so... You know, he was like, at the time, I was his favorite DJ. It's hard. It's really funny to say. I'd be like, I'm your favorite DJ's favorite DJ. You know what I mean? Because that's back when, you know, me and Lenny were really close with Carl. Because, you know, we were the guys from the United States going to Europe. So I met all of the people in London that were doing, you know, I spied a lot of these guys. And it's amazing that
And Carl wasn't as big back then.
Yeah,
like,
he was big, but not as a producer. In fact... You know, he just built his studio, and I gave him a couple ideas, and he ran with it, and he had his first hit record in 1991 with I Want You Forever. So, you know, it was definitely good times to, you know, be meeting everybody. And they loved us, too, because, you know, we were just crazy Americans.
what do you think of Sven Vath still playing vinyl to this day and nothing else?
I
That's all
have
he
to say, like,
plays?
I played an all vinyl set recently, and if you have the right records, and I'm sure Sven got an amazing collection of records. Yeah, it's the whole. I mean, I pretty much have masked the analog sound with the current Nexus, like, you know, CDJs and whatnot, the way I play, because I still mix the way I did, but. Playing records, it's such a, like, it's primal, really. So I mean, if Sven could play, usually the records skip at events. You know what I mean? Because it's the vibration makes things skip around, and you really don't want to have that happening these days. Where with digital, you know, it's solid, it's tight, but you don't really have to do much with digital either. That's why there's so many DJs now. You know, they don't mix anymore like we used to.
So techno made a huge comeback in the scene.
It's amazing how big techno's
So
got.
who are some of the people that you have your eye on?
Well, it's funny that all the women that are techno DJs now, and there's just so many of them. I mean, you know, I don't like. I could go on and on for days and days with names of girls that DJ techno that I like, but techno in general. Look, Carl Cox. I always said he was the best DJ I've ever known, and it's how he is so just Carl, always cool like a cucumber. Even though he'll sweat a little, but like he ain't sweating it like sweating it like some of these DJs. You watch him, you could tell where they're a little bit not really. And Carl just does his thing and always had that like Wizard of Oz type of you believe him because he's that guy, you know.
Yeah.
So he's, to me, when they do these top 100. You ain't telling me like any of these EDM guys, Calvin Harris, like, he's playing in Vegas, lifts the needle fucking off the record. Or no, it wasn't that. Something hit the CDJ and stopped it, and he mentioned something about cocaine and got yelled at. And I'm just like, you don't do shit like that. And it's like, you got to be professional grade at all times. And like, you'll see what I do tonight. I'm like a no-frills DJ in the sense of if you watch on YouTube Frankie Bones Live in Barcelona, it's a 3-hour set. It's not edited. I watched this. I was terrified to see myself DJing on video, but I was so amazed because I don't play like, I don't play the way with the turning the knobs, and it's just like, it's just mixing one into the other back and forth cohesively, and, and that art has been lost.
Yeah,
Yes.
and because it's so important. Like, you could just take somebody on a journey by just
Yeah,
mixing
I mean,
those
people have
records.
told me over the years, Bones, your mixes in the '90s were like a story, like it was talking to me, and we'd be going on these parties, listening to your tapes, and like, I affected a lot of people back then in a good way. You know what I mean? So I feel like, even if I didn't get the credits that I'm supposed to have, like if everybody's like, you should be retired, rich, like Carl Cox probably worth $80 million. Who knows? I'm worth whatever I was worth when I was 18. So I still have a future in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but there's not like a sob story, because you know what? I always loved the music for the music first. People are like, you should have copywritten PLUR. I'm like, but that takes the whole thing about PLUR away, because peace, love, unity, respect was for the people. It wasn't for me to make money off of it. It was for the people to come to the events, and if you see someone down or if they're sick, you help them out. You don't kick them in a closet. Like, I'm not even mentioning the club that did that back in the day, but the people that used to get too fucked up in the club, they would throw in like the janitor closet until they felt better. And, that's the thing I would never do. You want to have people, if somebody's not feeling well, get them to where they got to be. If it's a hospital or whatever, I have no bodies over the years at any of my events where someone drops at these festivals every year. Someone's dying at a festival, So
And it's very hard. You don't know that something that you are creating is going to turn into like this massive thing.
yeah, I never believed it would have got to the I'm thinking 10,000 people, maybe in America 20,000 people, but then once the new millennium came, and then like EDC, when EDC moved to Vegas, wow, that is an event that I always tell people, like, oh, it's cheesy, this and that. No, it's Vegas. It's in a speedway on a racetrack, a 3-mile racetrack. Around is the track, and all the party is in that 3-mile radius inside the racetrack. It's amazing. It's like going on a great adventure, and it's all about, the music, and that's why I love EDC. And it goes to 8 in the morning, so you get that sunrise thing, because that's where people forget. The day parties, forget about day parties. That's why people die. They get dehydrated in the sunshine in the summertime. Who wants that?
Especially in Vegas.
Yeah,
Vegas,
it's
the
like
pool party
nighttime,
scene
and it's like
heavy.
pool party scene for sure. But with the pool party scene, it becomes, who's at the gym the most, who's got, you know what I mean? It's like very elitist almost in a way where, you know, a festival, well, a lot of the festival is for kids. I'm not going to say it's not for kids, but there's nothing wrong with that either because we were all kids at one time, so.
I wanted to touch on two things. One,
Yes.
your mixtapes back in the day were huge in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
right?
and
The
yeah,
Frankie
and
Bones
that's
mixtapes.
Absolutely. And
I mean, mixtapes in general in Brooklyn were huge.
yeah, I had no idea they would be as big as they were. But what happened was, okay, let me just give you the history of this because there was a car wash on Avenue X and 86th Street, and there was a guy named the Invisible DJ. You go to the car wash, you get a list of like 20 tapes, and you just order off the list like it was Chinese food.
Right.
His tapes were on 8-track tapes when I first figured this out. I mean, cassettes were coming in, but 8-tracks were still being used. Like in the 79, 80, people's cars had 8-tracks in them. It's crazy. That's like, but then the Alpine 6-cube radio came along. I think the mixtapes got really big because I wasn't doing high-speed dubs. I was doing all my tapes in real time on high-bias tapes, and I had the boom in my tapes. Like other tapes didn't have that boom in it. And, yeah, they were addictive like candy. Once one kid got one, they wanted more. So, you know, $10 a tape. On Friday at Caesar's Bay Bazaar, I had lines of kids coming in. Crushing it. And you know what? Yeah, and you know what? Bad Boy Bill in Chicago totally did it right. Like, he probably eclipsed me 3 times over. And, you know, like DJ Clue, but the hip-hop guys were on it, too. I did sell a lot of tapes, though. I was also trying to, you know, sell records, too, doing it legit, where tapes were, like, more homemade, but the homemade tapes is how you got your shit out there. It's how people in the car, they can listen to it as loud as they want, and they're in their own environment, and that's where, you know, if they smoke a joint or you start hearing these tracks, because the music goes back to, like, it goes way back. It goes back to the disco era where there was really good music coming out. It's always been that way. And then I happened to be the guy with the record store that was getting all the stuff from Europe before everybody else, and knowing how to, you know, spin it, it was like, I played for Hot 97 for like 6 weeks at Metro House. So I got kicked off because I was way too in the future for them. And I put one of the tapes on. I'm listening to it, and I'm playing like this track, Silver Bullet, 20 Seconds to Comply. It's like a really old Fatboy Slim production from like 90. And how I got away with that on the radio, it was because I played like The Power by Snap, which was a hit record, but then I mixed that in and then kept it going. They got a little mad at me for that. Way too progressive for them.
Now, what about one other thing I wanted to talk to you about, just touch on, is B91.
Yeah, B91, that was amazing because I was going to go to Kingsborough Community College as, you know, my school for college, but I got on the radio station and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go to classes now if I'm on the radio station. And they brought me in there at a good time. It was like 1989. I started doing, they asked me, would you want to do Techno Thursdays on a Thursday night? And I'm like, hell yeah, because you know what? They only had a 5-watt signal that went to like the neighborhoods in Brooklyn, like maybe up to Kings Highway and south of that, which is not much a 5-mile radius, but a lot of our people lived in there, and they would come down to Oriental Boulevard, park their cars, everybody would be playing it, and that was legendary because that's how we promoted a lot of the parties. We'd get on the radio, just like the way they would do it on High 97 with Summer Festival or something like that, and just do it localized. And, yo, it was
So
crazy.
they would drive their car to get the signal.
To get the signal on Oriental Boulevard right there, like in Manhattan Beach, and they'd be lined up. When we'd pull out of the gates, I swear to God, it was like being like Howard Stern, people cheering, oh, balls, well. It was like nobody ever could imagine that we would. And the listening audience, which only went a few miles, like I said, we had more listeners in that area than any other radio station that was on the air at that time, even the big stations in that small area. And I almost had a show on when KTU came back. Or no, it was Hot 103 when they first came back on the air.
Yep.
They came back on the air in like 86, I think. We didn't have any radio stations playing dance music from 82 to 86. It was a really weird time. But I remember Hot 103, they were going to give me a show. But I think because one of the music directors there was named Frankie Blue, and I think my name was too close to his, and something happened. I cut carts to do the show, and next thing you know, they gave it, I think, to Armand Van Helden. Which, hey, I know at the time Armand was on fire, so it was all good.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, man.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you guys have. It was worth waiting 5 years for, I think. I think so.
We appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us.
Yeah, and anytime you guys want to do this again, well, let me do the set first, because if I stink, then you know.
I'm sure it's going to be great.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yep, thanks for coming down. We're going to take a 2-minute break. We're going to get Frankie Bones up on the set. He's going to rock live from Red Hook here at the Function House. Peace.
Thank you, guys. Peace out.
All right, we got Frankie Bones live from Red Hook here at the Funktion House. Take it away.
I've never really viewed myself as particularly talented. I've viewed myself as, you know, slightly above average in talent. And where I excel is ridiculous, sickening work ethic. You know, while the other guy's sleeping, I'm working. While the other guy's eating, I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm working. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work. I'm work.
again with the revolution con. floating on the waves. All is quiet and peaceful. As I open my eyes, I see a moonbow. Its colors moving, changing and rotating like a kaleidoscope. I'm not afraid. I feel one with the universe. I'm afloat on the waves, naked. All of a sudden I hear voices whispering my name. I look around, but there's no one there. I'm still looking at the moonbow. Its brightness tickling my body, sending me signals, reaching into my brain.
innocent bystander, the police are grabbing. Rock in the jungle, our mind is free. Free from the street, from captivity. Rock in the jungle, our mind is free. Free from the street, from captivity. Who you talking to? Who you? Uptown, downtown, you got to turn your life around. Who you talking to? Who you? Uptown, downtown, you got to turn your life around. Keeping this shit till people live in the streets. You got to be careful with everyone you meet. Looting and shooting, people stabbing and grabbing. Innocent bystander, the police are grabbing. Rock in the jungle, our mind is free. Free from the street, from captivity. Rock in the jungle, our mind is free. Free from the street, from captivity. Who you talking to? Who you? Who you talking to? Who you? Keeping this shit till people live in the streets. Got to be careful with everyone you meet. Looting and shooting, people stabbing and grabbing. Innocent bystander, police are grabbing. I'm coming down. I'm coming down. I'm coming down. There were 7 angels. You know what they said? They said my time had come. Yes, those 7 angels said that all the good people had won. Let the rain calm down. I feel a storm. Let the rain calm down. I feel a storm.
very typical lead sound. It only can be achieved by using sync mode of an oscillator and by modulating it very deep using an envelope. Let's show it again. Mix 6 and it generates a very different, more digital tone to this bass sound.
brackin' since the 80s. Google me, baby, you crazy. 89 in London, pulling bins up. Type it in, Google's your friend, bruh. Bitch, I've been brackin' since the 80s. Google me, baby, you crazy. 89 in London, pulling bins up. Type it in, Google's your friend, bruh. Since the 80s. Google me, baby, you crazy. 89 in London, pulling bins up. Type it in, Google's your friend, bruh. Bitch, I've been brackin' since the 80s. Google me, baby, you crazy. 89 in London, pulling bins up. Type it in, Google's your friend, bruh.
methods, anything necessary. Some things that you quite won't be accustomed to. So I've equipped each and every one of you with your own individual camera, so that you can take pictures of these bad little kitties doing these bad little things for tomorrow's paper. So whip out your $15 and prepare to enter Club Bad. Seconds and already I see a bad little kid doing bad little things. He is sucking on a balloon. Now this is not an ordinary balloon, parents. It's a balloon filled with a gas called nitrous oxide. Laughing gas. But this is no laughing matter. Cameras ready, prepare to flash. Smoking on a joint. This is not the thing to do. I think that we have to take pictures of these two. Cameras ready, prepare to flash.
It's about a young girl. She's only 15 years old and has blonde hair and blue eyes. She lives with her parents in New Jersey, and they love her very much. And one night, she and her friends decided they were gonna come to New York City. wanna, come to my place. I just don't wanna be alone. And she said, yes. So they got into a taxi and went to 3rd Avenue and 11th Street to the NYU dorm rooms and went upstairs and sat on his bed. And he said, take this pill. And she did. And then she said, what did you just give me? Ecstasy, he said. And then he fucked her all night. Ecstasy.
One day, I was with my girlfriend. This is down in Florida. She took me to this place. It had all kinds of things growing. She gave me something. It was a mushroom. She said, eat it. I said, mushroom? What's that? I said, eat it. I didn't think nothing of it. You know, she's kind of a wild girl, you know. I didn't think she was that wild, so I ate the mushroom. And I said, no, it doesn't taste like much. She said, wait a minute. So I waited a minute. A few minutes. And then the next thing I know, I was walking on clouds. They were beautiful clouds. My girlfriend was talking to me walking on the clouds. Everything felt beautiful. I almost felt like I didn't have any feet. No floor under me. It's beautiful. We looked at each other's eyes on top of these clouds. And we were talking with each other. But our mouths weren't open. And all of a sudden, she let me go.
I just wanna see you clap your hands.
But I didn't fall.
I just wanna see you clap your hands.
I floated. But I was farther away from her. Till the next thing I know, she wasn't there. I was by myself. Walked through the grass. Everything seemed beautiful. I was one with nature. Till I saw another. But it wasn't my girlfriend. seen in my life.
Frankie Bones. Woo!
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me out, guys. Appreciate that.
No, thank you for coming down. Let's just pause for a moment. Tell us about this. Tell us about the set that you played tonight.
Well, I mean, now that I've been doing this rave thing, it's, basically 30 years right now in the United States. We had dance parties in the 80s, but usually back then they were just like, half-baked acid house parties. And rave culture as we know it began to seep into America through LA and New York first, and San Francisco. I'm not going to hold them down and say they weren't there because they were there. There's been this debate about rave, right? Who brought it here first? I'm giving it to LA because they were already doing acid house parties and warehouse parties. I brought what I brought back from London, being over there, and then I took the London sound and the LA thing and brought it back to New York. San Francisco, I know you was there, but in October 1989, you had a major earthquake. I really highly doubt there was many parties going on in the weeks that came after this earthquake. That's why San Francisco doesn't get the credit that rave scene started. That's what I'm saying now. I might be wrong, I'm only one guy. But anyway, let me not get into a heated rant here. People be hating on me for doing this, but this has been all about peace, love, unity, respect. Whatever that became is not what it was when we started it, but it's part of the culture. If the kids like it, let the kids do it. You know what I'm saying? And I know about this Godfather business like Knuckles. You see Knuckles? Who wants some? Shout out to the legendary Godfather House, Frankie Knuckles. I'm out. Peace.
Frankie Bones, thank you. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. DJ Frankie Bones, he came here tonight, did his thing, opened up Season 5, live from Red Hook here at the Function House. Peace. We out.